So you've been fascinated by the concept of cybersecurity awareness. Maybe you've met the term in classes, online, or from your work. So let me tell you all about it. So the first part, cyber, is defined as of relating to or involving computers or computer networks such as the internet. The second part, security, has many definitions, but we'll go with the quality or state of being secure, such as freedom from fear or anxiety. Putting those words together, we get cybersecurity, also known as IT security. Whereas the definition is measures taken to protect a computer or computer system, as on the internet, against unauthorized access or attacks. Now, the second word is awareness, and it's defined as the quality or state of being aware, knowledge, and understanding that something is happening or exists. Putting these two words and definitions together, we get measures to create a knowledge and understanding of threats to protect a computer or computer systems against unauthorized access or attacks. So before we delve deeper, we have to set some standards of understanding when it comes to IT. Well, number one is almost a mantra that you can hold yourself accountable to. So number one is IT has no value in itself. It must be used correctly to exploit its full potential. Now, that means that if you don't know how to use the IT that you've set up, or the IS, the information systems, the software you've set up, if you don't know how to use it correctly, well, it has no value. So if you know how to use it, you get the full potential of it, the value it can provide. Now, number two is the market is roughly around 10 years behind the current technology and methods when it comes to the use of information systems, IS, which means if you're recently graduated like I am, you have the opportunity to have impactful changes in companies or other ventures in the work market. Now, it's not only solely based on like IT, but it's also a lot of like methodologies and how you work in the industry and how you use IT as a tool for your exploitation in some sense. So in essence, cybersecurity awareness is about you trying to educate your employees or yourself about cybersecurity attacks, which means you have to know the amount of attacks there are and that's available. You have to know how the countermeasures against them. And of course, it's mainly used against phishing attacks. So you need to know about phishing, what spear phishing is, what whaling is. That's other concepts in this term of phishing. There's concepts such as social engineering, which in the end, the entire goal of cybersecurity awareness and what it tries to teach you to avoid is getting caught, where they basically are trying to cheat you in some sense to gain access. They are trying to maneuver you and your understanding by pretending to be another person or another company, and they want to gain access to your systems so they can do malicious activities towards you or your company. Now, with the stage set, let's jump right into what cybersecurity awareness is and why it's important. Okay, so the different kinds of attacks there exists at the current point, and there's of course more, but some of them are social engineering. This is where you try and perceive yourself as another person, another company, to try and gain access to a system. Another one is phishing. Phishing in general is you've seen it, you've probably received mails like this before, but it's primarily done through email, and then they send sketchy links or PDF files or other kinds of files for you to press in on and give in your login information. And then when you give them your information, they suddenly have access to the systems that you have. Spear phishing is when you target a specific individual. So there's regular phishing is normally just widespread, a generic mail they send out to a lot of people. Spear phishing is targeted directly at a specific person. And whaling is trying to catch some in the top level of leadership in the company. Now, cybersecurity awareness, in essence, is you, in many cases, at least, this is where you want to try and stop or teach your employees to not make this happen, basically. So you want to make sure that this amount of access is not granted, that your employees are not, and yourself, in some senses, are not cheated or give access to the wrong people or give information to the wrong people, so they have an avenue of attack next up. So another kind of attack, it's a quite new one, it's called cryptojacking. Cryptojacking is basically often something you see through like ads and banner ads. It's where you click on an ad on a website and then it downloads a file onto your PC, and the only sole goal of that file is to try and mine Bitcoin from or other cryptos from your machine while it's working. So when it's on, it's basically mining for free or using your computer processor's power and graphics card to mine cryptocurrencies for the person who put in the file. So other forms of attack that you might have heard of, there's ransomware, where they basically take control of your computer and then they want something in return. So they keep it hostage in a sense, and then they want X amount of money to release it back. Another way of attack is the attack called DNS spoofing. This is something that you often see in combination with social engineering, in combination with phishing attacks, where the attacker basically creates a website that's completely identical to the one that you wanted to access, but instead that website is one that they have made. So whatever information you type in there is something that the attacker actually will get a hold of. So yeah, these are just a few of the many different ways of cyber attacks that cybersecurity awareness is the countermeasure against. All right, so we've seen on the definitions, looked at the ways of attack, some of them as examples. Now, it might sound easy or plausible that, well, or a simple solution that, well, you can just not click the links, you can just be aware of it. Well, basically, that's where the definition or the second law, if you can say so, that we talked about earlier, where, well, the market is 10 years behind, right? Both in understanding and methods and knowledge, right? So in some sense, the person who receive the emails and those who are most vulnerable are the ones who are not that tech savvy. And if you have not tech savvy people, those are the most vital people to gain this cybersecurity awareness training for the safety of your company, because you only need one leak for the hacker to get in, or one misstep for them to get crucial information. So whenever they get more information, they can use that information to seem more legitimate. So a way where they can do this is actually by scraping your social media profiles, maybe your LinkedIn profile, and then if you post a picture on let's say LinkedIn with your computer screen on, and then they can see in the taskbar that you have something like SAP, the ERP system. If you have that used and have that open, then they can see, okay, well, that's an avenue of attack. So we know that this company X uses SAP as an ERP, and now we can tell them that we are SAP employees or a consultant from X firm helping them with SAP, and then they can seem more legitimate and have an easier time to access the system that you're working on and gain information and gain access to crucial parts that shouldn't be available for them. So in essence, it's a lot more complicated than what you think. Like, even if you are tech savvy and you have this idea of, well, I know my stuff, so I don't need to think about this, it seems super simple. Well, in some sense, it's a big change management issue in some sense, where you have to change the how things work in the company and how you go like company-wide, how you access files, how you speak with your colleagues, and how you just interact with the PC in itself, and some security measurements that you can go through. So the IT department can only do so much with two-factor and face recognition or whatever kind of security measures they put through to try and make it as safe as possible. But if the mind behind the ones using these IT security measures don't understand the threats that are available and that they can see, well, then suddenly all those IT measurements or security measurements doesn't have the same impact, doesn't have the same effectivity. Because you can do a lot just through IT alone, but it's the understanding, it's the knowledge of this concept of the attacks that's vital to the protection. So the weakest part of an IT system is the human behind it when it comes to security measures, which is why cybersecurity awareness is so vitally important as it is. Now, when it comes to change management, there's many things where you can see either resistance or other kinds of countermeasures for you trying to implement these kind of things to prevent cybersecurity attacks. So one measurement could be that the people are habitual creatures. So that means they want to do as they've always done. That's a big thing to keep in mind and know. Well, if people are in habitual creatures, which they are, they will do like they've always done. And then if cybersecurity security measures are not in the same line and the same standard as what the as the up to date and the main points are as of this moment, well, then you have a vulnerability. And when you have a vulnerability, that's something that the attackers can use. That means that when people are habitual creatures, they will normally not... There's like many ways of them to resist the change, because it could be more convoluted, it could be more annoying, it could be many things. There's many excuses for it, but it's not an excuse when you have a leak, or if you lose access to something vital, or you lose access to information, or you give access to the wrong people. Well, then the damage is already done, and it's a pain to trickle back down and take a look at how much they've actually, how much information the attackers actually have on the company and of the intellectual property that might be in there as well. Well, there's basically three different concepts that Barlow and Barlow et al. From 2013, they say. Well, there's the defense of necessity, which is a neutralization that is used when an individual who intends to violate a policy rationalizes that they have no other acceptable choice. The choice is out of their hands, therefore they should not feel guilty for violating the policy. Then there's the denial of injury neutralization. Is used when an individual who intends to violate a policy rationalizes that no one will be hurt. If no one is hurt by the action, the violator convinces himself that there is no reason to feel shame or guilt. And 3, the metaphor of the ledger neutralization is used when an individual who intends to violate a policy rationalizes that they have done enough good deeds to justify doing something against policy. So this is another point where the second law, in some sense, comes in, where, well, when the market is behind on IT, well, then the policies might not be up to date as well to how you fight against these attackers. And if the policies are not up to date, that means that the workers have to maybe go through some of these neutralizations to have to feel like they can do their job properly. Another thing is if the policies are in place and are high enough, but the employees at the company do not have the necessary knowledge to know about these kind of attacks, well, then they might use one of these 3 neutralization as an excuse or as an argument for why they would break the policy to create these things. Now, and if these things are not aligned, you again have a vulnerability in your company, in your IT systems and softwares, which then lets you, again, if you're more vulnerable, it makes it easier for the attackers to get in some sense. With all this in mind, it's important to tell you that cybercrime is the fastest growing crime worldwide and continue to increase in sophistication and costs to the global economy with an estimated $6 trillion by 2021. So this is a study made by Al-Hashimi and Abdul Basit and Abawaji. Sorry for ruining your last names if I can't pronounce it properly. But again, it just tells you like the scale and the measurement, like the scale of the entire operation and why cybersecurity awareness is this important. So when it comes to change management, you also have something called risk assessment. And risk assessment is something that you have to tackle as well when it comes to cybersecurity awareness. Because risk assessments is what happens. It's risk assessment in the sense that, well, if you have change management, there's always going to be risks associated with it. You have resistances, you have people who are for it, and then you have to find out, well, who is the key person who's against it. If you can get them to believe and buy into the system, well, normally the other people will buy in as well. And that's how it traditionally is, at least. But just to put it in scope and in context, why cybersecurity awareness is so vitally important as it is, well, it's because it's a gigantic industry with cybercrime, whereas by far the most amount of attacks that we see is spear phishing, whaling, or just phishing in general, and social engineering. And social engineering is something that's used together with phishing and it's used as social engineering is basically this concept where they try to the act of trying to be someone that they are not, or act like, or at least make it perceivable that the person who receive the emails or the information or the message from you, they believe you are someone else. Now, if they believe you are someone else, they are more vulnerable, because then suddenly there's phishing attacks, there's the different ways of attacks, like DNS spoofing, URL interpretation, like you can name it, ransomware, whatever. There's so many different attacks. It's just in general, like, and something that people might not even think about is like even like the physical attacks on the premises. If you bring a USB port with you into a facility, into your workplace, and you might not know where it's from, or you have it from a friend, let's say, then there could be some malware on there, and you just basically pass it through and then plug it in, and you have access to everything out of nowhere. So there's many ways of attacks, and the last one is a very old one, so it should mostly not happen. But again, it's still a part of the entire bubble that is cybersecurity awareness. So even though it might seem simple, and the concept might seem simple, and the entire work around it and the ideas of it might be simple when it's just, don't click links. Well, if you don't click links, you can't probably do your job correctly, because you have to always be in communication with others to get the job done most efficiently. Which means, well, the only choice you have at that point is have cybersecurity awareness. You need to know and learn the distinction between this is a good link, a good guy, and this is a bad one. It's a bad actor.